I'll be sort of the more obnoxious person at the moment. Are we recording?
Yep.
All right, good afternoon. We're here with Carol McLean, who is a Parkinson's caregiver and cared for her husband for 17 years. Carol, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So why are you here in New York? What's going on?
Well, I am here to create an awareness of the fact that Parkinson's disease quite often has an element called Parkinson's dementia. Can occur in 40% of the cases, and that caregivers and patients don't know about that in many instances. So I hope to create an awareness about that.
Terrific. And you're not only with us today, but I understand you're going to be talking with some other shows as well. So you're really out there on a mission trying to raise awareness. What's your ultimate hope from all this?
I am on a mission, and my husband now has been dead for a year, and that mission hasn't changed. I am angry, I am frustrated that information that we needed to better care for my husband was not available to us at the time. I'm a nurse, my husband was a physician. We did not know that the prevalence of Parkinson's dementia was that high.
Why do you believe it is that high? Do you have any facts or figures with regard to, any science behind it?
Actually, no, I am not an expert on that. Dr. Ravina, who is our person who talks about that, all I know is how it affected our lives. And I know in the online surveys have indicated that there are a lot of people out there working with their loved ones who have Parkinson's dementia, and that they too were not aware that this was a possibility. So I want to create that awareness. I want caregivers to know that this could happen to them, and I want them to be prepared if and when it does.
Carol, if you don't mind me asking, so how did this, the Parkinson's psychosis and just the disease in general, affect your life both physically and perhaps emotionally?
It's very difficult to watch someone that you love, that you plan on growing old with, develop dementia, and you lose them a little bit every day, and you know that that's not going to get any better. I was angry that I was having to go through this. I was angry that my husband was having to go through this. I felt very isolated. I felt very alone. I thought at the time I was probably the only person going through this. And I think it is just a terrible thing to have to experience, and to recognize that you weren't given the tools that might have helped you with it.
Did you have support in any way?
My support came primarily from online caregiver forums. And I would be so exhausted sometimes at 2 in the morning when I might get my husband to sleep for an hour. But I still got on there because I felt these were the only people that understood what I was going through. And I've continued to do that because I think I'm in a different place now, and I hope that I can help somebody else.
So you really were leaning on each other in this online forum. Did you ever actually speak to any of those people or make friendships on the phone? Was it all
anonymous? But in many ways, I feel that those are some of my closest friends, and there are probably 15 or 20 of us that post regularly.
What are those people doing in terms of treatment and also relief for themselves?
I think it's agreed that all of us recognized that we needed to take breaks, that we needed to have time for ourselves. In reality, that just doesn't happen. You just don't have that time. So these people are actively seeking answers from other people who might have been through this, who are going through it, and it's quite apparent in most of these instances that the physician is not the person giving them the information they need.
Would you say now you have more information about the disease now than you did 3 or 5 years ago?
Oh, I definitely have more now than I did. And I think I have objectivity now that I didn't have then. I can sit and remember what happened and at the same time, know that I didn't have the information I needed, and I have it now, and I want to get that out to other people.
What's kind of baffling for me as a medical journalist is that, I've heard that there are no FDA-approved drugs for this disease, for the Parkinson's psychosis, yet they're treated with antipsychotic medications, and it's sort of this vicious cycle that goes on. Can you talk to me a little bit about that and what you experienced?
In our case, and that's all I can really speak for, Clarence received the standard antipsychotic treatments that are approved. And we knew, and the doctors did explain to us, that oftentimes those only magnify the symptoms of the Parkinson's, not the dementia. It interferes sometimes with the Parkinson's drugs, and it really is not that effective. In our case, I found all it was doing was sedating my husband so that both of us could get some rest, but it did very little for his psychosis.
Would you have considered putting your husband in a clinical trial at that point in time if there was in fact a drug that was being studied for the disease?
Definitely. I think, I personally believe, being a nurse, that clinical trials are critical, and I think the only way we gain information about treatment options is through clinical trials, where you have definite criteria, you have patients in large numbers, you can analyze a lot of information and data from these numbers. I would have enjoyed having the friendship and people around us who were going through the same thing, which I didn't feel I had at all. And I think we might have had access to drugs and treatment options and even follow-up treatments that wouldn't have been available otherwise.
Would you recommend clinical trials as a treatment option for those in your forum today or others that you might meet that have Parkinson's psychosis?
Yes, I would. In fact, on the forum we've already talked about it, and it's something I think everyone would be willing to participate in if they had the opportunity. We just want to know that everything is being done. It can be done. We as caregivers need information. We need to know what our options are, and that's what we're asking. Just let us know what the options are and what we can do.
So the neurologists, they really don't have, at the moment, the proper drugs to treat this disease. It seems like some of them don't even have the education about Parkinson's psychosis. What's your feeling on that? Did you experience any of that?
No, not from the standpoint that you're coming. I think the physicians let we caregivers direct how much to tell us, and I think we have to have the right questions. We need to know what to ask. I don't think there's any intent to deceive you. I just think they need the green light to know that it's okay to give you certain information.
Carol, we have on the phone with us today Lindsay from New York City. My understanding is she is treating a family member with Parkinson's psychosis. Hello, Lindsay, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi, Carol. How are
Hello,
you?
Lindsay. I'm fine. Thank you for calling.
Thank you. My father actually has Parkinson's disease, and I'm starting to see some symptoms as you've been describing, and I'm trying to figure out if I should enroll him in a clinical trial as well. Yet all I can think of is I'm going to, turn my father into a guinea pig. How do you feel about this?
As I said earlier, and it's a good question, I feel strongly that clinical trials actually help patients get better treatment. I don't think people are treated like guinea pigs. In order for the FDA to approve a clinical trial, they have to make sure that patients are treated with respect, with dignity, that there is clinical significance to the trial, and that it has a reasonable chance of being beneficial. So from that standpoint, and if your father is still able to make decisions, then that has to be part of his decision making also. Talk to the neurologist, ask the neurologist, and know that he may not be a candidate for a particular clinical trial. There are very specific criteria, and he may not fit into that, or he might, but make sure that you have all the information you need to make a very good decision, based upon that information.
Carol, I have one last question. You mentioned earlier that you were angered slightly. Are you still feeling that way now, a year later, several years later after caring for Clarence?
I am, and it's, as I said, it's been a year. That the anger is still with me, only from the standpoint that I think we could have had a little more time. We could have discussed things that were important that you kind of put on the back burner and think, well, we'll talk about that later. We could have made decisions, legal decisions, which need to be made. You know, who's going to have power of attorney? How much treatment do you want? You know, do you want life support? You know, beyond what maybe I'd be willing to give you. Those need to be discussed. They're not always pleasant, but I think even in a non-disease situation, you need to have those things in place. So, and I'm angry at the disease. I'm angry at what it did to me emotionally, and I'm angry my husband had to go through that.
Well, hopefully you came out of this being a little bit stronger, and we thank you again for joining us today, and we applaud you for the work that you're doing, and continue marching forward and educating.
Thank you, Leigh. It was nice being here.
Nice meeting you.